Los Santos, 1987. Grove Street Families is one of the dominant gangs operating in the city. The brother of the leader of this gang and the protagonist of the game, Carl C.J. Johnson, in unknown circumstances, allegedly contributes to the death of his younger brother, Brian. Out of shame and lack of support from his brother Sweet, Carl leaves LS for Liberty City, where he spends the next 5 years of his life. He cooperates there with, among others, Joey Leone, the son of the Don of one of the local crime families. At this time, there's a new high on the streets that goes by the name of crack cocaine. For some gangs, it is like grist to the mill. The rivals of the families, mainly the Ballas, take advantage of this opportunity, becoming very rich in the process. In turn, Sweet's gang, fiercely sticking to their principles, does not go into the crack trade. The appearance of crack cocaine and a slightly strange decision by the head of Grove Street Family's Sweet lead to the almost complete decline of the gang. 5 years have passed since CJ left Los Santos. It's 1992. A few Balla members are driving in a distinctive car, the Green Saber, to carry out a drive-by on Sweet. As a result of this action, however, it is not the main target who dies, but his mother, Beverly Johnson. This event becomes the direct cause of Carl's return to the west coast of America. CJ does not intend to miss the funeral of another member of his family, as was the case with his younger brother Brian. When CJ returns to the neighborhood where he grew up, his taxi is stopped by the Crash Police Unit, whose main goal is to fight street gangs. Members of the group, namely Frank Tenpenny, Eddie Pulaski, and Jimmy Hernandez, stop the main character and then frame him for the murder of Officer Ralph Pendlebury, whom they had previously murdered. The motive for the murder was that Pendlebury had evidence of corruption within the unit. Tenpenny and Pulaski, wanting to save their asses, decided to kill him. However, the officers do not take CJ into custody. He is to remain free to do the dirty work that will soon be assigned to him in the coming weeks. The protagonist finally manages to return to Grove Street, where he meets his friend, Big Smoke, who takes him to Beverly's funeral. Once there, Carl meets another friend of his after many years, Ryder and 2 siblings, Sweet and Kendall. However, Sweet doesn't look too happy. Instead of greeting his brother, whom he hasn't seen for 5 years, he decides to continue reminding him of his past mistakes, at the same time giving him some information about how the gang is doing badly. Generally speaking, Sweet is bothered by everything. He is also pissed off that his sister is dating Cesar Villalpando, an important figure from the Mexican gang called Barrio Los Aztecas. Soon, the Ballas appear at the cemetery and attack the men. However, the gangsters manage to return to the cul-de-sac safely. And there, CJ declares that he intends to stay in San Andreas for good to help his gang get back on track. In the following days, Carl tries hard to rebuild his reputation in the families. He takes part in activities such as tagging up turf, killing crack dealers, or doing drive-by on hostile gangs. He also contributes greatly to getting more weaponry for his gang, which occurs through his activities with Ryder. In the meantime, CJ also has the opportunity to meet his sister's boyfriend, Cesar, which takes place at a lowrider competition, which Mexicans love. In his free time, the protagonist meets with Big Smoke, who helps him with very strange things. Strange because it is often unclear what is really at stake. You may get the impression that the tasks have nothing to do with helping the families. Well, in the tasks for Smoke, CJ primarily fights Los Santos Vagos and the Russian Mafia. Issues that are slightly more related to the gang include, at most, picking up CJ's old friend Jeffrey. As it turns out, Jeffrey started going places in the music industry by adopting the nickname OG Lock. Over time, Carl completes missions for him as well. They're about helping OG Lock rise and shine in the rap world, often in a highly exaggerated way. CJ steals a book of rhymes from the very popular rapper Mad Dog and kills his manager. As if there wasn't enough work for the gang or old friends, the main character must also perform tasks for Crash. They are very suspiciously correlated with the tasks performed for Big Smoke. That is because both in the case of Big Smoke and Tenpenny, CJ tries to make Vagos' and Russians' lives very difficult. A little later, Grove Street gangsters manage to murder 2 OGs of the Ballas, Kane and Little Weasel. OGs are important figures in a given gang. In addition, CJ also regains an important part of the city lost by the gang some time ago. Since the situation of families is improving quite significantly, Sweet's plans also include reuniting the families, which sometime earlier had split into 3 factions. Thanks to this, families can become even stronger. Therefore, representatives of each group are to meet at the Jefferson Motel. However, the meeting is completely ruined by a police raid. Sweet, CJ, Ryder, and Smoke miraculously escape alive after a spectacular chase and explosion-filled shootout. Sweet doesn't give up despite the unsuccessful meeting. Shortly after, he organizes people who will help him carry out his plan of a massive attack on the Ballas. Of course, Sweet also involves CJ in the whole action, and he is to meet him and other gang members under the Mulholland intersection. As Carl heads to the destination, Cesar Villalpando asks him for an urgent meeting. It turns out that Cesar has discovered that Big Smoke, with Ryder at his side, is working with Tenpenny and the Ballas, and is preparing another attack using the Green Saber. Carl quickly connects the dots. He realizes that the battle under the Mulholland intersection is a trap left for Sweet. The protagonist asks Cesar to take Kendall to a safe place, while he drives quickly to save his brother. It turns out that CJ's worries were not unfounded. The main character finds Sweet getting shot, and a large group of Ballas shooting at the members of the families. Carl manages to fight off the enemy's attack. However, because Sweet is injured, the brothers fail to escape from the police. Carl is stunned, but he regains consciousness in the car where he, Tenpenny, and Pulaski are sitting. Unfortunately, the cutscene takes place many miles away from Los Santos. CJ learns that Sweet has been arrested. He will soon appear in court and receive a heavy prison sentence. In turn, Smoke together with the Ballas, after getting rid of Sweet, reap the rewards and sell crack cocaine. But the police officers are not going to feel sorry for Carl. They force him to get rid of a certain witness who might testify against them to the feds. CJ has no choice. If he opposes the officers, Tenpenny will make sure that Sweet's fellow inmates add an extra hole to his butt. Carl completes this task successfully, and soon he meets a certain hippie through Tenpenny, the Truth, who owns a marijuana farm. Tenpenny tells CJ to get money so he can buy 3 tons of marijuana from the Truth. The policeman wanted to plant them on one of the prosecutors, who was watching him closely, trying to gather evidence of the officer's corruption. This is a time in CJ's life when a lot is happening. Thanks to Cesar, it turns out that an organization from a nearby city, San Fierro, is selling crack to Smoke, who is selling it on the streets of Los Santos. Cesar not only discovers this valuable fact, but also finds a solution to CJ's sudden need to get money. Well, Cesar suggests CJ meet his cousin, Catalina. Catalina turns out to be a total psycho. Additionally, over time, she falls in love with Carl. Together with Catalina, CJ carries out 4 robberies that allow him to get some of the money to cover the costs of buying the drugs from Truth. An important point in the main character's story is the moment when he meets the leader of the Chinese triad from San Fierro, Woozy. Woozy organizes a race in the countryside, which Cesar tips off to his friend. By taking part in and winning these races, Carl not only meets a very influential person, but is also able to finance Tenpenny's request. Moreover, Carl's unrequited love drives Catalina crazy. She tries to make CJ jealous. Specifically for this reason, she gets to know Claude, who turns out to be one of the participants in one of the races organized by Woozy. CJ also wins this race, thanks to which he wins a workshop in San Fierro from Claude, to which he then goes with Truth and 3 tons of marijuana on board. With the help of Cesar and Kendall, CJ plans to open a full-fledged workshop to earn some extra money. For this purpose, Carl manages to recruit 3 people to the team, thanks to the Truth: 2 mechanics, Dwayne and Jethro, and an electronics expert and owner of an electronics store nicknamed Zero. Soon, Carl fulfills Tenpenny's request and plants drugs in the car of the DA. Thanks to a clever trick with the phone, he managed to get the prosecutor arrested by the police. The main character also invests a bit in Zero's shop. Investing in this case mainly involves helping Zero fight his biggest competitor, Berkeley, in various skirmishes, during which CJ must demonstrate above-average ability to control various remote-controlled toys created by Zero. Then CJ and Cesar, using Woozy's information, find out who produces the drugs for Smoke and the Ballas. Namely, it is a criminal group called Loco Syndicate. The most important people in this group are the local pimp Jizzy. the head of San Fierro Rifa, T-Bone Mendez, and an unknown man who is allegedly calling the shots in this whole organization. Ryder, in turn, plays the role of an intermediary between the Ballas and the Loco Syndicate. Due to all this, CJ decides to pay court to the Syndicate by performing several tasks for Jizzy, becoming his right hand in a way. While working for Jizzy, CJ meets T-Bone Mendez and even the leader of the organization. CJ finally finds out what his name is, Mike Torino. Of course, apart from getting all the information about the Syndicate, CJ also helps Woozie and the Triad, which is constantly struggling with various problems, such as the war with the Vietnamese gang Da Nang Boys. Sometime later, when CJ eliminates a certain journalist who has a large file on Crash, he then puts into action a plan to destroy Smoke's business. After all, it's the Loco Syndicate that sells crack to him. If CJ destroys this organization, Big Smoke will have a big problem. First up is Jizzy. After killing the pimp, Carl gets his phone, which allows him to obtain information about a meeting at Pier 69, where Ryder, T-Bone Mendez, and Mike Torino are to appear. This will be the perfect opportunity to kill everyone involved. Unfortunately, everything doesn't quite go according to plan. While T-Bone Mendez and Ryder are 6 feet under, Mike Torino makes a successful run for it. However, Woozie soon informs CJ that Torino is preparing to fly out of the city by helicopter. The main character arrives on time. He shoots down the helicopter. The Loco Syndicate is history. There is only one step left to deprive the Ballas of their supplier, which is to destroy the factory belonging to San Fierro Rifa, where drugs for the Syndicate are produced. That's the final step to dot the I's and cross the T's. CJ blows up the factory using a bomb from Woozie. As if the good news wasn't enough, a new opportunity to earn money opens up for the protagonist and his team, which involves obtaining specific car models for a certain client. With the help of the team, CJ manages to steal the necessary rides. Moreover, he also buys a nearby car dealership, which over time also begins to generate a decent and stable income. The idyll is interrupted by a phone call that the main character receives from an unknown man who uses a voice modulator so as not to reveal his identity. The man claims that he will give Carl valuable information about his brother if he decides to work for him. When CJ shows up at the designated location in Tierra Robata, it turns out that the person who called him is none other than Mike Torino. It also turns out that Torino is a government agent, and his operation related to the Loco Syndicate was a form of fighting threats in Latin America. If you want to find out what exactly Mike Torino's actions were, check out one of the videos on my second channel. This is an extremely extensive topic, so it would be difficult to discuss it briefly, and in the case of a summary, it is not necessary. Back to the merits, Torino tells CJ that if he does some work for him, at some point he will use his connections to get Sweet released from prison. Carl agrees to this proposal. He doesn't have much choice anyway. The tasks themselves for Torino are very demanding. CJ must, among other things, destroy helicopters of rival government agencies, transport contraband, and blow up government planes. The truth doesn't make CJ's life any easier because he orders him to break into a military base. The goal is to steal the jetpack being developed at this base worth $60 million. As if that wasn't enough, CJ also carries out an attack on a heavily guarded military train, from which he steals a mysterious green substance called green goo, which is strongly related to aliens. When this madness comes to an end, Carl is contacted by Woozie, who has started a new business in Las Venturas. This business is the beautiful, modern The Four Dragons Casino. The problem, however, is that the Sindaco crime family, which are the co-owners of another casino in the city, Caligula's Palace, constantly make Woozie's work difficult by sabotaging the activities of his casino. Woozie offers CJ that in exchange for his help, he will get a share of the business's profits. Carl agrees to this proposal without hesitation and helps Woozie in the fight against the Sindacos. This is noticeable, among others, by blowing up the factory where they were producing fake Four Dragons casino chips, thus making fun of Woozie's blindness. To effectively get rid of the competition in the Sin City, CJ and Woozie prepare to rob the Caligula's casino. This huge financial blow is intended to send the Mafia back to Liberty City. A key role in the preparations for the heist is played by a phone call from the Truth, who contacts CJ again to ask for help. Truth wants CJ to look for his British companions, Kent Paul and McCare, with whom he partied last night. A group of friends went too far with various strange substances, which led them far away from the city. After CJ picks up the Brits, it turns out that Kent Paul is friends with a certain former lawyer, Ken Rosenberg. It is then that Carl learns how exactly everything works in Caligula's. It turns out that the 3 crime families from Liberty City managed this casino together. However, none of the families wanted to trust the other, so Rosenberg was placed in the position of a kind of intermediary. Unfortunately, it ended with the fact that the remaining mafia families, Leones and Forellis, did not want to divide the profit into 3 parts. Hence, both of them tried to take control of the casino. Ken, the one who was supposed to inspect all this, was caught in the middle of this conflict, with little chance of survival. This mess was a perfect opportunity for CJ. The man helps Ken get out of this dead-end situation. This allows him, over time, to get in favor of the Don of the Leones, whom he helps settle the score with the Forelli Mafia. Carl also manages to play it all so that the Mafia thinks that Ken is dead, while he is hidden away from all the action. In the meantime, black clouds appear over the heads of Tenpenny and Pulaski. It turns out that Jimmy Hernandez sold his companions to Internal Affairs, which unfortunately cost him his life. Tenpenny found out about everything and had no mercy towards Hernandez. He stunned Hernandez with a powerful shovel blow to the back of the head, then ordered Pulaski and CJ to do the rest of the dirty work. After burying Hernandez, CJ takes advantage of being alone with Pulaski. After a short chase, he gets revenge on the corrupt policeman. In the following days, CJ wanders the streets of Las Venturas. On one of the streets, he comes across quite a spectacle, the main character of which is the famous rapper, Mad Dog. After his life was ruined by OG Locke, he became drunk and tried to kill himself, but CJ saved him. When the protagonist takes the fallen star to the hospital, Mad Dog sobers up a bit and offers him a job as a manager, which CJ accepts. What is most important at the moment is the successful execution of the long-planned robbery of Caligula's casino. After obtaining all the necessary equipment, CJ and his team go undercover into the casino, blow up the safe, steal hundreds of thousands of dollars, and leave the building in one piece, all thanks to CJ drawing all the attention of the police to himself. However, there is not much time for celebration. Mad Dog is soon released from the hospital, and it turns out that his large, beautiful mansion in Los Santos has been taken over by a drug dealer belonging to Los Santos Vagos. With the help of Triad, CJ gets the mansion back, and CJ's entire team returns home. However, Torino soon reminds CJ of himself, and has one last job for him. This time, Torino outdoes himself. His task is to break into a military ship, from which CJ must steal a jet with which he will then shoot down spy ships stationed in Bone County Bay. Thanks to CJ's work for Torino, Sweet finally walks out as a free man. The main character drives straight to the police station to pick up his brother from prison. CJ wants to show him everything he has achieved and what a bright future awaits them in the future. But Sweet doesn't care much. In fact, he doesn't care at all. All he thinks about is the hood and getting the families back on their feet. As Sweet wishes, the brothers go to Grove Street. They are taking back the district from the hands of the Ballas. The next few days were spent by CJ fulfilling more wishes of his brother, who only wanted to clean up the hood over and over again. Over time, the brothers managed to recover a large part of the territory from the enemy, and also recruit Big Bear, who has been struggling with crack addiction. Meanwhile, CJ and Mad Dog settle their scores with OG Locke. They recover Mad Dog's rhyme book and sign a contract with a music label. Soon, Tenpenny will finally appear in court and be sentenced for the actions he has committed. Ultimately, however, it turns out that he is cleared of all charges. This decision enrages the citizens of Los Santos. Riots break out in the city. In the accompaniment of this great mess, CJ also helps Caesar in regaining the areas in El Corona from the hands of Los Santos Vagos. In the meantime, of course, conducting numerous gang wars aimed at gaining the area for the families. Big Smoke, who has become a drug lord, is still doing his best. The destruction of the Loco Syndicate didn't do much for him in the end. He united other criminal gangs and built his crack factory. There was little chance of getting smoke, but thanks to CJ's actions on the streets of Los Santos, Sweet found out where the factory was located. It quickly turned out that it was not just a factory, but a whole crack palace. CJ knows breaching this fortress won't be easy, but there's nothing else left. If Big Smoke is not taken down, his actions on behalf of families and the district will be of no use. So CJ goes into the fortress, where he fights his way through dozens of gangsters. Eventually, he gets to the top where Big Smoke is, and he gets sweet revenge on him. However, the problems do not end there. Tenpenny suddenly appears on the spot and wants to take advantage of the situation to get some of Smoke's profits for himself. CJ and Sweet start chasing the corrupt police officer. When the chase is taking place close to the famous cul-de-sac, Tenpenny loses control of the vehicle and dies in the car accident. The officer's death seals the end of this whole crack story, during which many people completely forget about any values in the name of money and power. Please let me know if you think the story was told quite well. If you like this type of video, I would like to encourage you to watch an episode summarizing the plot of GTA 4. Thanks for all the subs and likes, and for now, I'm saying goodbye to you. Take care and see you soon.